Another video camera to look at, and I think this one is the final. What, the final? I think this is the last remaining VHS-C camera that I've got in my mountains of stuff, and it's probably pretty similar to the one we looked at last time. It's because, what was that, an MC10 maybe? There's an MC20, the Panasonic NV-MC20. It's a VHS-C movie camera with autofocus for recording and playback. It says there that it's got a flying erase head. And again, piezo autofocus. High quality microphone. And again, I think this did not have any accessories with it. Seems to be the thing. And the handle grip, like rubbery plastic thing, very had just like snow covered all over it, which has been brushed up onto there, so that at least I can get this near me without getting white stuff all over the place. But it's still, yeah. So this is very similar to what we saw last time. It's got the previous video battery NiCad in the hand grip like that, except this one's not having stuff crusting out of it, so that's a good sign. And now actual AV output connectors, not that weird little round thing. Again, tracking control, as well as date time set shift, and a remote control connector, RF converted DC output, microphone there with a normal and high, presumably, sensitivity adjustment. Viewfinder's a bit different. This one doesn't have a connector there like the other one, which had been glued in place, which caused quite a bit of bother. Does that move along? Kind of looks like it would do. No, it does not. Missing its eye cup. You can see it's a small CRT. And wide angle telephoto zoom control there. Record, start, stop. The DC in 9.6 volt connector. Got an operate switch. Power on off, eject button, reset, display, memory. So that's counter reset. Camera search, plus and minus, which is also rewind, fast forward, play, still, stop. That's it. There's no insert editing or audio dub like we saw on the other previous model. I guess this is a basic version. Auto or manual focus, white balance, auto, outdoor, indoor. And then fade, date time, which will be like to burn it into the screen or not. And high speed shutter button. There's the like manual zoom control, 9 to 54mm lens, manual focus here, and that's it. You don't get anything else. Now probably we can power it up, try it out, see if it works, and then take it apart, regardless of whether it works or not. So this thing here, it is a VHS-C camera, so it takes these small, it's showing a Panasonic one since we're Panasonic here. That one looks like it has mold growing on it. VHS-C tapes, so it's the same type of tape, just a much smaller amount in a smaller box than what you get with your standard VHS cassettes. And it's compatible with VHS by putting the tape into a cassette adapter like this one, which will then, after you've finished recording and with your fancy camcorder, you pop the tape into there, and it will wind it out and turn it into a regular VHS tape that you can put into your home VCR. Well, that's really neat. A great feature. And then you can pop it back into your camcorder to record over with your new exciting adventures. Kids' birthday parties, Christmas times, going to Disneyland, all that good stuff. Otherwise, you just put this away in the closet after recording like one special event and never touch it again. And it ends up here so that we can take it apart and see what was inside it. Should we power this up? Should we take the door off the side first so we can see what happens when we try to put a tape in it, assuming it powers up? A bit hopeful, isn't it? Presumably that's enough access that you could manually clean the heads if it needed it. I'm guessing most people just use a cleaning tape. I wonder if this is some sort of cost down version of the MC10 that we looked at. It does seem to be. It's a bit more sort of cheap and nasty feeling to progressively get. Now, I don't know why this didn't come with any cables or anything. It might have just been another case of, here I have some random video cameras. Let's set this thing to 9 volts, and there's a center positive connection. Get a video output connected up so that we can see what's going on. If anything goes on, hopefully something will go on. Let's plug this in. So the great thing with this is we can actually see some power consumption. So doing 0.3 watts, like, is that 33 milliamps? Yeah, completely dead. Yeah, that's disappointing, isn't it? It doesn't do anything. It must be connected. Well, maybe it's not connected because it's... I don't know. I'm not convinced that that's making a connection. Right, okay. Maybe we can try joining onto battery terminals. Positive is that one. Negative is that one. Let's see if we get this little adapter thing. Little power supply thing. What voltage are these batteries? 9.6 volts. So we'll set that up. And what was that polarity again? Positive is this one. Negative is that one. Doesn't do anything. Confusing. If we join the ground onto this, the video connector, just so that we can check, is this actually making a connection? It is connecting because like that changes to 0.01 watts when I connect that up. So it's definitely connected, but it ain't doing anything. Let's see, does it do the same thing when we connect to the terminal over here? Oh, yes, it briefly jumped to like 0.2 watt. So either that power switch is bung, which if it was you'd still expect the eject to work, because on these eject seems to be a priority function that can just happen at any time you want, because rescuing your tape is important. Oh, that's interesting. Pushing... oh, this clip is bad. Pushing the eject button, it caused that to jump up to 0.33 momentarily. Let me just crank this up a little bit higher just in case. Yes, I think it's hooped, unfortunately. Presumably what's happened is like what's happened to all of these things is that the capacitors have gone bad and probably leaked, wrecked the circuit board, and because the capacitors are bad it means switch mode power supplies can't start up anymore, and there you go. So instead of fiddling around with that anymore, let's take it apart and we can see what wonderful things lie within. Look what kind of screwdrivers we got around here. Guessing this is a... it's like it's a number 0. Let's see what's going on inside this thing. The screw there seems like something that would let that pop out. Great. Alright, we're just gonna start randomly undoing screws and see if something happens. There is one here which will be clock backup thing, memory backup. And yeah, look at that. It was a very flat thing, and it's gone very crusty as well. So that's nice. Everything's going all sticky and bad. Just what we like. Yes, this one might be beyond redemption as well. It's been the case with some of the other cameras. It's typical of this era, like mid-90s, where a lot of surface mount caps were being used, like surface mount electrolytics were being used for the first times, and they didn't work very well. Well, they worked well for a few years, but the heat of the surface mount oven wrecked them, and then their life was very short. So many people gave me their Sony Handycams of this era, and they're all wrecked. They just would not work at all because capacitors had gone bad. This was a long time ago, like 20 years ago, in the 2000s. Even back then they were all ruined. You could smell it. Power it up. Get this horrible fish smell after a while. And yeah, that's how you know the electrolytics were wrecked. Is that a clip? That's pretty weird, isn't it? What is holding this thing on? I think it's clips. Clips here as well. Yeah, look at that. Clipped together. None of those screw nonsense. Okay, but that was just... Here we go. Yeah, this one doesn't have a panel that... Oh, look at that, another cunning screw hiding there. Yeah, the other one, there was screws through the control panel there, which had to be undone. But this one, they just put it on wires. Then we can undo it from this side. Small control panel, connected by some wires. Very stiff wires and sticky tape. Interesting. There's free space in the bottom of this. Does that mean there's another version of this that has more stuff down there? Or is that just the state of things these days, that miniaturization meant that they don't need that extra space anymore, but it still needed the height in the machine for the VHS mechanism there. Guessing that will just tip the little tripod mount off. Same with that, that just unscrews the little bracket thing. Doesn't actually help get this thing apart. What helps get this thing apart is the same as what helped the other one get apart, which is undoing the red screws. There's one there, and then there's one in each corner of the mechanism, and they are number ones, not zeros. Now we've got to get these little screws that were hiding under that little cover so that the back side can undo. Is that true? Maybe. Yeah, there's a couple more screws on here. Ah, look at that. Did not notice there's an earphone jack hiding just there beside the grip. Cunning. We don't have the disaster of that viewfinder connector glued into the housing like we had last time on the other camera. Is that a screw? I don't think so. It seems like it's just a hole. Those are screws holding the camera parts in. That's the zoom controls, and look, that's a connector there going to the viewfinder. Then at the bottom there's some stuff going over to the other side. That's all pretty easy, isn't it? So the record start stop button there, the connector for the headphone jack, a grounding thing to the tripod, and then separately a positive and negative battery terminals, and then the audio from the microphone It is very similar to the other camera, that there's this little control panel and then a board that goes off to the VCR mechanism, and then again one flex connecting the VCR part to the camera part. Oh, look at that. That thing there was behind that, and that looks like a white balance sensor. Look very carefully in that. There's some colored little sites on there, locations, areas on there, which will be the like for detecting the intensity of different colors. Let's see if we can use a microscope device for that to get a better picture. What an interesting thing. Look at that. Color's not showing up very well here, but though two outer ones there are green, the center is a kind of orangey red color, and then the other two non-square ones are blue. And it looks like there's a bunch of logic or circuitry on the sides of it, which probably preamps, filters, and it's in a package quite similar to what a image sensor would be, like camera CCD image sensor. Pretty interesting. It's really interesting. The VCR part, there's a connector there, it doesn't go to anything. I wonder if there's some kind of remote control option thing, different version that's fancier, has remote control stuff. Now this circuit board arrangement, does that squeeze in? Oh, oopsies. To get this back to a reasonable level. Yeah, that hinges out for easy servicing, and it's all different. This has been optimized, presumably optimized. Smells very Panasonic-like. Maybe that's the smell of the capacitor's gone bad. I was wondering if we could see any way easily if there is some dodgy business going on with this thing. Probably a lot of dodgy business. Okay, you see that hole there? That goes quite deeply through, and to that red screw that we undid to remove the mechanism is now kind of stuck in the hole for some reason. So that came from there, that post there. That's what the screw was screwed into, right between there. I've changed the audio settings slightly. I wonder if that means it sounds better today. I couldn't really tell when I tested it. Is that a thing there, that hole that I thought might be a screw down there? Is that the other side of that? The back of that threaded thing? I think so, but it's not a through hole. It's just, I don't know, maybe it's something to help with the molding process. Will this swing out if we undo that screw? Unlikely. Oh, look at that. Much easier to undo than the other mechanism. Funnily enough, the other mechanism from the previous camera is right here, because I brought it here so that we could compare some bits on it. I don't have the circuit boards here though. I took those to work as an interesting exhibit to hand around, since I was so interested in how the board had like no ground planes or anything, and no discernible sort of power or ground tracks. Everything was just packed in, which is interesting because this one seems to be better. Still doesn't have any ground planes in it, but at least it's got discernible sort of ground power bands going through it. So I guess they learned a bit from it. It has a bit, much less bodges on it, like almost no bodges. Everything is like actually installed. Ah, look at that. And there is the reason why it doesn't work. There's some juice coming out of that capacitor there, at least. There's a like black goo coming out of it, and which suggests that all of the capacitors in the critical power supply circuits in that area are ruined. Now in terms of mechanism, similar but not the same. The video heads are not mounted and it's just sitting there. And it's very interesting that this one had RF transformers on both sides of the video head, which is amazing. Why has it got so many? So there was pickups on this side, and another one on the back side coming up there, and then that plugged into there. In this case, on this machine, this board, let's see, go off track. This board here has got more stuff on it, not that much more, some more. Form factor is a little bit different. That sensor there is an actual switch now, where it was like an IR sensor. Capstan motor looks like it's probably the same. That sensor is now wired through to here rather than separate wires. All that stuff there, oh no, that still exists there. There's more pins there than there, because I think all of the head pickups on this one are on the bottom side, or on this side. Let me get the little shielded can thing open. Oh, look at that. It's got a square TQFP Matsushita brand part in there. Yeah, it looks like a higher density connector 12. Not sure how many pins. Not sure, that 12 might be related to the IC there. Numbering rather than the connector numbering. Since there's a 1 at both sides, there's a pin 1 dot is there for that side, so it probably means the connector number is from 1 on that side, so that 12 is to do with the IC. Wow, that screw is a bit tricky. Some of my screwdrivers are worn. I guess they multiplex them. Like, there's a common, so they can get away with less pins. This video head provisioned for trick play and things. Maybe that's what it's done. So there's more. Yeah, it's probably like 4 video heads rather than 2. It'll have like dual pickups on the main heads. That's probably what happens. So it's got better rewind, fast forward, pause. And this one here probably doesn't have those, so it doesn't need the extra stuff. Because it does look like there's the same number of pins there. Interesting. So I guess the older one was more ambitious then, and more features. Still has the place where that would have been mounted if it had it. Yeah, where that stuff on the back would mounted. It's probably the same like mechanism, like the casting, die cast, that chassis. It's probably the same. Maybe a slightly different revision. Pretty good. Now, in here, you can see it's still got lots of fine tracks on it, but it's definitely not as dense as the older model. More integration, I guess. Still no ground plane. You can see there's light through the PCB. But yeah, not as dense, and it doesn't have all that extra stuff all over it. Now, what is inside this little metal thing? Presumably that's the switch mode power supply stuff in there. Yeah, nice and dense. Yeah, so we can see there the goop coming out of that cap there. And probably the same on that one. Yeah, it's juicy. You can see when you wobble it, there's juice under it. And I think it's the same for that one there. Yes, so dodgy caps, strikes again. Strikes every time. And yeah, if you want to restore this, you're going to have to find... Well, first you're going to hope that it hasn't like eaten its way through the board too much. And then you've got to try and find capacitors that are that tiny. Like low profile ones that aren't, the diameter is not too much. Yeah, they're around, it's just a bit of a faff trying to find them. Can we see any evidence of that corroding through the board? I think it's just flux residue where there's sort of browny coloured marks like that. But that there looks particularly dodgy. Which is it's like a surface mount resistor, but it does look quite crustified. Yeah, there might be some stuff leaking through the board around that resistor, because yeah, look at that. Yeah, look at that. Those solder connections there are corroding, and possibly on the leg of that trimmer there. Like a drip of something there. Well, that just might be a lump of flux. Don't know about that. That might be something that's oozing through from a capacitor. Here's a ground test point, surface mount attached test point there. Another one there. There. You can hook your scope probes and things onto. You see it's corroding through wires there. It's gone quite dark looking. Interesting, the solder mask. There's not much solder mask on that. Yeah, they haven't fully tinted the wires, and also haven't really tinned them either. These look very coppery. It's interesting. I've been wondering about these boards as I've been poking them around, that this kind of stuff that's on the surface there, I always thought that was like residue left over from the flux from the wave soldering, but maybe it is a like humidity protective coating that's been sprayed onto the board after manufacturing to protect the surface mount parts, particularly resistors and capacitors should be protected from humidity to stop them growing mold. I'm not sure how correct that is, because it is only on the side that it would have gone through the wave, is this side, like the part that all the legs are poking through, so that would have been through wave soldered, and then some of these things like trimmers would have been hand soldered on after, although that does have glue blobs under it. Maybe those, don't know how those would have survived it. Maybe they've got tape over them. Maybe it's like a third process where they get placed and then reflow soldered after the wave solder. Not sure about that, but while looking at that, I did notice those capacitors there definitely crustified as well, because I could see it really dull, crusty looking on those pins there, and then very moist looking on those ones there, which are all capacitor pins, I think. Oh, that's a inductor thing next to a capacitor. Is it? No, that's that. Yeah, okay, so there's plenty of damage caused by leaking electrolytics. Interestingly, on this board here, there is some of the holes haven't got like either blowholes or they're not filled properly. Maybe there was some contamination and the holes didn't wet properly. Doesn't look like anyone's had a go at reworking it. That ceramic module thing there. This looks like it has either printed on jumpers or resistors, those black rectangular things, and then a bunch of surface mount components. Not that many really. And then it's got a TQFP looking thing on the other side. And yeah, I guess most of the business is happening on that inside there where we can't really see it. And then that is surface mount attached down to that board there. There's no legs poking through on this side. Pretty good. Perhaps we'll take this board off to see what that connector that didn't go anywhere, whether that wires to something. It wires to. Interesting how they've done the links. Like double-sided board, it's not plated through, so they use wire links there where one side is soldered on the top and not the bottom, the other one's soldered on the bottom and not the top. So it's a link, although yeah, some of them are, yeah, it's a mixture of whether they're soldered one side or the other of the link. See, those are neither on this side, those are half on this side, and then they're both on that side, half on that side. Interesting links. But there's that connector, and it wires to various places, including that. So it might be some kind of remote connector, remote control connector for a fancier model. Full of great things. Let's get off the viewfinder and have a look in that. viewfinder. CRT viewfinder. Extra insulation there. Interesting mount on the front of the CRT. Yes, it's very similar to the other ones. This uses AN2514S. A little control IC there, which does all the heavy lifting. Looks like there's a fusible resistor there, 0.35 ohms. Bizarrely, that is in like a TO92 package. Wow, 2 legs. Guess that is, yeah, input fuse. This one has 6 wires, again like the other one. It's interesting. They also socket everything going off the CRT as well. Well, almost everything except that high voltage wire there. That's not socketed, but everything else is on this end. That's unusual. Because normally you just unplug it by the little CRT connector. But yeah, you can undo that side. And that's quite a stiff wire there. I wonder. Well, it's more high voltage wire, I guess. Rated at high voltage. All that shaded area there will be for high voltage parts. CRT socket. Now I want to take this end off, see what's in there. Well, there's not going to be much in there. Well, there'll be, oh no, look at that. There's a surface mount LED there, and there's a light pipe, so a little red dot will come up there to show recording, presumably. Is it being glued? I think it's got rubbery stuff in there because it's like touching the glass. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, look at that. See, these tiny CRTs don't have a square face on them. It's only the bezel, the surround that makes them look square. They're actually round tubes. Now, if we crack that glue off, we can unscrew this, which is retaining the deflection coils on the tube. Which it doesn't matter which rotation they're in because it's a round faced tube. Small CRT, Matsushita, Japan. There's the part number. Interesting. Interesting unit. We'll peel that tape off to have a look underneath it. Now if we look carefully at this, what we'll find is the wire that's by itself is the one that comes from the flyback transformer, the high voltage. So that pin there, the one that's by itself, goes up there and onto this metal part, which goes then to that larger metal part, because it's part of the same assembly, and then that would have like a flared out springy bit, which then grinds on the edges of this stuff here to the anode, the high voltage charge, to accelerate the electrons towards the front of the screen. Small CRT, really interesting. There are the deflection coils. And you do up that screw and, well, that nut, and it just tightens that down. So it'll be like a flanged thread there. Well, it had some tape on it and now that's gone, but it's okay. Neat little unit. That probably still works, although its capacitors are probably just as dodgy as the other ones. Yeah, interesting, there's no surface mount caps in there. I guess this is still old-ish. Are there any date codes that we can read off this stuff? Oh, maybe it's not that old. It says there 9034, 9034. This one here 8950, 9024. So this would be like 1990, 91 vintage camera. Yeah, it would have been just before they introduced the surface mount electrolytic capacitors and ruined electronics forever. No, ruining electronics era was the EU introducing lead-free solder. That's the worst thing that happened. Anyway, let's take apart this camera part and have a look in it. We've got to get this little sensor thing off first. Yeah, I guess eventually they'll they should hopefully undo that lead-free thing for electronics and we can go back to manufacturing reliable stuff. That'll be wonderful. Now, what have we got here? Presumably, it's going to be quite similar to what we saw in the previous model's camera, which is that the image sensor was just sitting by itself in there and then had a ribbon cable connecting up to the top. It does look like it will be the same. Some suspects spotted. Look at that. There are surface mount electrolytics. And what do you see around them? Crusty, corroded circuit board. Brilliant. Although it could have been that leaded one that caused it. But yeah, there's definitely corrosion around there. So early as 1990 or 91, they were introducing these surface mount electrolytics, and that's when our lives were changed forever. Another board. No surface mount electrolytics on that board. It's the one that has what's presumably under there, high voltage driver for the piezo element for the focusing there, those two wires. Let's take the back off and have a look at that, since we're in here. I feel like all the rest of this lens, or all of this lens, is going to be the same as what we saw in the previous video camera. So if you want to see a bit more inside this, then make sure to check out that video as well. The previous episode, you should look up what the episode numbers are so that you can see or know. That was 195. Go look at episode 195 after this one to have a look inside a very similar camera that's slightly older. Look at that, there's the image sensor. In this sort of, I don't know, metallic coated plastic box. For good shielding. There's the board, which the first line of defense to the CCD image sensor, and then connects off there onto the next in line board. And then again, the image sensor is mounted on this piezo element to provide focus, back focus. Here it is. Yeah, back there. Can move around. Well, move in and out. The application of a voltage to those terminals there. Great. There you go. I don't think we need to take this apart any further because it's just the same as what we saw in the other one in the previous episode. Camera lens, various sensing parts on it, the motors to drive the zoom and the focus, and then the little motor thing to drive the iris, which is in that slice there across the image path. Excellent. So, I think that concludes VHS-C video cameras. I think. If I find another one, then we'll do another one, but for now, that's VHS-C. The nice little tapes. Still got some 8mm cameras to go through. We've got some digital 8 cameras. I think they're digital 8, something like that. And a whole bunch of professional cameras. Heaps more stuff to get through. So stay tuned for that. But that concludes today's look in the Panasonic NV-MC20 VHS-C camcorder.